and then I was sentenced to 33 years
So
to
33
serve.
years.
Yeah, I had a 33-year sentence, and I had to serve concurrently. So I had a 15-year concurrent service then. So I would have to serve 15 years. You're looking out the glass at your family, and I can see my wife and my daughter and my aunties and uncles and my mum and all. I just think your world's ended, basically, just for malicious and untrue accusations, you know. But every time I was trying to prove that these things hadn't happened, they were just not interested in. They were just not interested in my evidence of it. They just wanted to put that to one side and just focus on me. So, but the whole point of the investigation is it's about finding the truth. Mm-hmm. The interview stops for further investigation. I then have to go home and tell my wife what's gone on and parts of my family.
You can take a moment. I know it's quite hard.
At the time, my daughter was 14, and I didn't want her to really know about any things like that, you know. I've never been in trouble with the police. I've got no record. It was quite hard for me to have to go home and explain what I've been accused of.
So then, Brian, what happened in May 2015? Hello, I'm your host Pooja. Welcome to Falsely Accused. In a world where truth often intertwines with fiction, some stories surpass our wildest imaginations. Today, we delve into one such tale, a journey of wrongful conviction, a relentless pursuit of justice, and the enduring strength of a family. Our guest for today is someone who has experienced firsthand the harrowing ordeal of being imprisoned for a crime he didn't commit. His story sheds light on the profound laws within our justice system and the personal toll of seeking exoneration. Welcome, Brian. It's an honor to have you with us today. Your story is both harrowing and inspiring, and we're grateful you're here to share it with all of us. Let's begin with what life was like before the events that changed everything.
Yeah. Thank you for having me here today.
It's a pleasure.
My family life, it was great, good. It was very happy. We had, nice life, very chilled, nice holidays. We bought a new house. Everything was going well and no complaints. I had a good job and, very good life, really.
What led you to pursue a career in construction management? What did a typical workday for you entail?
I started off actually as a labourer on sites. Mm-hmm. So I was, carrying bricks and bits and pieces, and I just worked my way up. Money was good. I was young, so I just worked my way up then to construction manager for a utility company in London. I worked away all week from Monday to Friday. I was basically 16 years doing that, mm-hmm. away from home, leaving my family back at home. Typical daily routine really is making sure I had a few hundred people working for me, and just making sure that everything was done correctly for a well-known water company in London. Mm-hmm. It was just busy meetings and talking and trying to win other contracts. So yeah, it was very, very demanding and mentally undertaking, as in making sure that things are doing correctly.
But you were enjoying it?
Oh yeah, hence being away for so long from home. So yeah, but it does come with its pitfalls. You're away from your family all week.
True.
So yeah, it's not it's not all.
So a happy
Good.
family life,
Happy.
enjoying his work-life balance,
Yes.
and a good life.
And a good life, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, Brian, what happened in May 2015? Can you tell us about the time when you were first accused, and what was your initial reaction?
Yeah. 2015. Sorry. 2015 is quite a memorable year, really, because that's when I'm all right. That was when our lives changed forever. Mine and my family's. Mine and my family's life changed forever. It was a May bank holiday, and I was at home where normally I would be away working. And I heard a load of noise outside the front of my house, and the complainant's father was in my wife's face, directly in her face, shouting and screaming at her. He didn't realise I was home, so obviously I went over and confronted him. We got into a fight. Obviously things happened. I got the better of him. My wife was then on the phone to the police. She was shouting while she was on the phone, saying that the police are on their way and stuff. With that, the complainant's father went from my property. The police turned up then, I don't know, 5-10 minutes later, came in, asked us a load of questions. He went out of the property and he came back and he just said, that's the strangest conversation he has ever had. He said, I've just spoken to the complainant's father and he's denied actually being at your house. And I went, well, okay, but I've obviously got marks on my neck, and why are we going to phone up if these things hadn't happened? So he obviously went missing. They arrested him 7 hours later, as I found out later on. So we carried on with our day. We made the statements. Then midnight of that night, we've seen blue flashing lights coming up my driveway. I banged on the door. There's 2 police officers at my door. Wanted to arrest me for assault on the father. So I was allegedly meant to have hit him with a pickaxe handle, which I said, well, that's bizarre because I have never had a pickaxe handle anyway. So they went into my garage, and we've got a log fire, and in the garage I used to keep all the timber, all the wood for the fire to burn. So they took 2 bits of wood, put them in a plastic bag and said, oh, they look like weapons. And they put them in a bag, put them in the boot of the car, and then put me in the back of the car and took me to the police station. I was in the cells then processed. I was in the cells then for 24 hours. Nobody came to see me. He had no idea what was going on. And then the duty solicitor came in, said he was going to represent me, and then the police started interviewing me regarding the assault. So I told them everything I knew about the assault and what had happened, and then they'd released me on bail. I never heard nothing then for about 3 or 4 weeks later, and I had a phone call then from the police. They were at my house. I was on the way back from London. So they just said, oh, Mr. Buckle, we're waiting here for you because the complainant's father has accused you of stealing a mini digger, which is a small excavator. Okay. So I actually laughed on the phone and I said, so they wanted to search my house, inside my house, for machine buckets, and I said, where do you think I'm keeping up in the loft? Or so it was bizarre, really bizarre. So obviously they searched my house, no machine on my property, but it was found on his property because he owned a farm. So yeah, so I was accused of that. Nothing came of that. So I was still on bail for the assault, and then about 6 weeks later I had another phone call. And the phone call was, can I come up to the police station on a Saturday morning and they wanted to discuss the excavator machine that had been stolen. So I said, yeah. So I went to the police station, got to the police station. I had a duty solicitor there. So she just said to me, just answer the questions that he asks you, and that was it. So obviously I got nothing to hide. You ask me what you want. So the first thing the detective said to me was, I've got to ask you these questions. I'm not interested in the machine, he said. So I said, well, that's the whole point, you've brought me here. And he goes, yeah, but I'm not interested in that. So I said, right, okay. So he said, something not right about all this, he said, but I'm going to have to ask you. So the first thing I said was, well, if there's something not right about it, why am I here? He said, you've been accused of abusing the father's daughter, the daughter of the father you've assaulted. And I went, excuse me? And he said, yeah, you've been accused of abusing his daughter. I just, well, how to explain it, I don't know, because I just felt weak. I just couldn't believe what I was brought into the police station for then, and it just spiraled and spiraled out of control from there. The police officer then asked me lots of questions, and I was just, basically it was going over my head. I was just numb, to be fair. And then the question I asked was, who's made these accusations? And then he turned around and he said, the complainant's father has made the accusations. So I said, right, so the actual complainant hasn't made an accusation? No, it was him.
Okay.
So, which was really, I thought, hold on a minute, there's something not right here. I said, the things you're accusing me of, this is him. The father of the complainant, he is a convicted paedophile. So, but they were not interested in that. So in 1991, he was convicted of exposing himself on a ferry from Fishguard to Rosslare to 2 underage girls. And he was convicted of that, found guilty. And they were on 2 separate incidents. So it wasn't a case of, it was an accident or whatever. So he was done for that. He's got criminal records. He's, beaten police officers up. He's knocked police officers over. He's been in prison for fraud. He's a proper bad one, the wrong one, as they say. And he's got criminal records. But every time I was trying to prove that these things hadn't happened, they were just not interested in. They were just not interested in my evidence of it. They just wanted to put that to one side and just focus on me, because it's, like he said, it's not about him, this is about you.
Right.
So, but the whole point of the investigation is it's about finding the truth. So, obviously, at the station, I'm thinking, right, okay, how do I go home now and tell my wife and my family that I've been accused of abusing a child, So it's like, that's going through my head process. So, obviously the interview stops for further investigation. I then have to go home and tell my wife what's gone on, and my part of my family, what's happening.
You can take a moment. I know it's quite hard. Would you like some water?
No, I'm right for a minute, thank you.
Let's take a moment.
At the time, my daughter was 14, and I didn't want her to really know about any things like that, I've never been in trouble with the police. I've got no record, so it was quite hard for me to have to go home and explain what I've been accused of. So I had a conversation with my wife, and obviously we spoke about it for a long time on why and how and everything. We never heard anything for a little while. And then I had a phone call then, I'd say about 6 to 8 weeks later, to say that they wanted to speak to me again regarding the accusation. So I went back to the police station. So next thing they questioned me regarding a diary that she was meant to have been meant to be writing in, and the police officer said that the complainant had said that I was meant to have ripped pages out of this diary she had been writing and ejaculated into the pages. So, which, you know, at that point, I thought I was just going to pass out, because I just thought, hold on, where's all this coming from and how, and well, I just couldn't believe it, to be fair, of what was happening. So the police officers then questioning me on, well, how did it get in there, and how, and I had no answer, apart from, in her statement, she said she found sticky substances, and I said, well, if she said she found sticky, she must have found my clothing or bedding and wiped it on the pay. I said, I have no idea. So that's how I left it, you know, because I didn't have. But then again, I had to go back then and explain that to my family then of that. And it's like, well, I've never seen this diary or journal or whatever they call it. So I go home and explain all this to my family, and obviously Elaine's then like, well, hold on a minute, how is your DNA in there? You know, because it's a hard thing to explain that, you know, DNA comes from you. So it's like, okay, how? So that was a very hard and, you know, stressful time for us. So we moved on, trying to investigate bits ourselves and look at the statements and prove. So the police then were looking into the investigation, and there was allegations made where I was meant to have done stuff while there's other people around, and so the police never spoke to them people as witnesses, that even though the complainant had mentioned they were there. Mm-hmm. So they basically, that she was saying that she never came to my house when I was there at the weekends, only when I was working. She never brought her children around and stuff when I was never there. So I said, well, I'll stop you there, because I'll show you all the photos and videos of Halloween parties, Christmas. The daughter was a bridesmaid at my wedding. They were at my wedding. So, you know, the complainant was at my wedding. It's like, this is crazy. So even my wife had a hysterectomy, and her daughter, the complainant's daughter, stayed with me and my daughter for a week. So I showed them all the stuff we had to prove that she was lying about that, but they just didn't want to know anything about that evidence whatsoever. It was just, I'm not interested in that, not interested in that. And that's how it went on for basically 2 years. I was on bail for just over 2 years. And then I went to the magistrate's court then for my plea, which obviously was not guilty. And then in 2017 then, I was in Crown Court.
So it must have been really tough for you, even to try and explain things to your own family. How do you think your family was supporting you during this time, especially Elaine that you mentioned, when the DNA was found?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's hard to process, to be fair. It's like, I mean, I to this day I still can't, you know, to this day I still sit down and think, why, how? So my family were amazing.
Can take a moment, I can understand it's all overwhelming for you.
I mean, I've lost a lot, but I could have lost more, you know. I could have lost all my family through horrible people making false allegations. But again, you don't, not being in that position, you just don't, you can't understand why somebody would do something like that, you know. You just can't process it. So yeah, my family were amazing through the whole process, to be fair.
It's been a hard time for them and you.
Yeah.
So then, Brian, what was it like during the trial in 2017?
So in May the 2nd, 2017 is when I was in court. And to be honest with you, I was very nervous, which, you know, you would be. You're stuck behind a glass box, so you immediately think, hold on a minute, I'm already incarcerated from everybody, because you're in this glass box that you can't, you know, you're looking out into everybody, and so it's like, you know, you are this dangerous person. But the trial, it was shocking. My original barrister, my first barrister, was absolutely useless. He never challenged any of the questions. The prosecution just absolutely laid it on so thick. Obviously the jury, you know, unfortunately with a sexual allegation, and especially against the child, you know, that's instantly, you know, a no-no before you hear any evidence anyway. So, and at one point when the prosecution was putting over their case, I was actually sitting here looking round, because I thought, are they talking about me here now? Because you're making me sound out like this monster.
That you're not.
Yeah, and I had to question my barrister when I came out then of the break to say, are you sure you got the right trial here? So yeah, it's, you know, and I had all my family in the gallery, my aunties, my uncles, they all come up to support me, and it's just so embarrassing, you know, it's horrible. And the amount of lies that are told in the court when you're sitting there, and the worst thing is the courts let it happen, even though they know they're lying. The judge, the prosecution, even my barrister let it happen. You know, the complainant made her statement, which she answered. I can't remember, I don't recall, I'm not sure. She never actually answered any questions of the allegations. She just said, I don't know, can't remember it. Yet, one of her friends then came in as a witness to say that she was always in my house and stuff like that. And the complainant had already said that she was never there, yet she was making out she was always in my house. Yet the judge still let that carry on. My barrister never even challenged it.
They didn't see the inconsistency at all?
Didn't challenge it whatsoever. I mean, the complainant made 4 separate statements, and every statement was totally different. So it started off with a little bit, then it went on to a little bit more, then a little bit more, and then, you know, the full shebang basically is. So they used all 4. But what was very interesting is when we were going for the trial, before she made the statement, when he told her that I was abusing his daughter, he was constantly phoning the police, which we've got the logs of, chasing up, has she made a statement yet? When is she coming in to make a statement? Chasing up, has she done the statement yet? And there's about 6 or 7 entries where he's constantly phoning the police to see the detective, to chase up why she hasn't made a statement. When he made the allegation, he then the police went to her workplace, which was a pub. While she was behind the bar working in a pub full of people, the police went up to her and said to her, just to let you know, your father's been arrested for fighting with Brian, as you know. He's accused him of abusing you, is it true? So she turned around and said, yeah, whatever my dad has said is true, but I don't want nothing done about it.
Oh, so she actually said, I don't want anything done about it.
I've got it in black and white. She said she doesn't want to speak to any of the police. She doesn't want to make a statement.
Okay.
And then for 4 weeks, they keep chasing her and chasing her and chasing her to make a statement. And when she does make a statement, her father's sitting in the room with her, in her living room, while she's making a statement. So obviously when we're in court, these things should have been brought up, but my barrister didn't. So, you know, yeah, it was, well, for me, I thought the trial was okay because I've never been in a situation like that. So I thought, well, hold on, I'm telling the truth. I'm innocent. They've got to find me not guilty. But how wrong was I?
You were actually expecting to go free from there.
I was expecting to be not guilty, yes.
Because of everything.
So yeah, it was far from that, yes.
And how did you feel with the result of the first trial being so completely wrong? Of course, you spoke about the importance of having a very good barrister to represent you,
Yeah.
which was not the case the first time, as you said, you had to change.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then, of course, the police and the prosecution failed to see the obvious, as you've mentioned in the different interviews, etc.
Yes.
Statements that she's made.
Yes.
So what exactly did you feel about the whole thing?
Well, like I say, when you're sitting there and you're hearing all the information, you think, well, how can they find you guilty on, I'm not sure, I can't remember, the complainant not even answering a question about you, but she was answering questions about what her natural father had done to her. So you think like, okay, the jury must see that. When they came back with a verdict, it was 11-1. So my trial was 5 days meant to be planned for. It ended up being 3.5 days. So I had 16 counts to go through, and 16 counts, yeah, against me, and I had a trial for 3.5 days. The second day we were in court, it was cancelled because the juror never turned up. He was phoned in sick. And then the third day we went into court, the judge turned around and said, oh, there's no court this afternoon because I've got a hospital appointment. So it took longer for the jury to make a decision because it took them about 1.5 days to make a decision on if I was guilty or not guilty than my whole trial. And obviously when you're sitting there, you're thinking, oh, well, it's taken a while to come back, and they came back with questions. They came back with it, they couldn't all decide. So you're sitting there thinking, oh, well, that's good. That's, you know, that's
some hope at that
yeah, yeah, because for me, not guilty means you're not guilty. If you're debating over it, and like the judge says, you have to be sure to convict somebody if there's evidence there to prove.
Yes.
Well, if you're questioning it or debating about it or asking more questions about it, there's doubt. And if you've got doubt, it's not guilty. So, of course, when they said they've come to an agreement of conviction, and then they say guilty, and then you've got one juror who's just nodding his head, who you know has got not guilty because it's 11-1, you're just thinking, well, what did that juror hear differently to the other jurors? Because he obviously got it. And then you know, basically when you see in these films, I know we all watch films and it seems a bit far-fetched and everything goes quiet, but you just hear hissing in it. That's what it was like. I was just staring. I just couldn't believe.
It was unreal for you.
Couldn't
believe those words.
I just couldn't focus or understand what was going on. I had two officers behind me then who I just said, oh, what's happening? And he just said, oh, mate, you're coming with us. I was just like, wow, right, okay. So you're looking out of the glass at your family. I can see my wife and my daughter and my aunties and uncles, my mum and all. You just think your world's ended, basically. Just for malicious and untrue accusations, you know. I was obviously taken down to the cells at that point, and processed, and I was on remand then for 4 weeks then, for them to do a sentence report and everything. And then obviously with the sentence report done, I went back to court, and then I was sentenced to 33 years to serve. Yeah, I had a 33-year sentence, and I had to serve concurrently. So I had a 15-year concurrent service then. So I would have to serve 15 years. In that period then, after 7 years, I was due for parole, but I would have never got parole, as everybody knows, basically, because you have to admit guilt to get parole, and you have to show remorse to what can I call them? To the person that's accused you. Well, as far as I'm concerned, I've got no remorse because I haven't done anything. So I would have to serve the whole 15 years, yeah, of my sentence. So it wasn't like half of the 15, it was 15, and that was what I had to serve.
So it's when your life, your entire life was at stake, your family, everything,
Yes.
everything.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. I know this is hard, but how did Elaine then react to this conviction? And did you get a chance, Brian, if I may ask, to at least meet them after the decision which was made by the jury and it was announced to you?
Yeah, no, well, I mean, it was hard at that point because obviously when I was taken down to the cell, my original barrister came downstairs and he just went, oh, he said, you know, you've been given too much of a long sentence there. And I just looked at him and I just said, I'm not worried about the sentence. That's not what my issue is. My issue is the conviction. Obviously at that point, you just don't know what your family are thinking. You know, all things go through your head is, are they going to disown me because I've been found guilty and they think that I might have done it now? And, you know, these things do go through your head because you're stuck in a cell on your own. You're out of the way, you've got no contact. But my junior barrister did go up to see Elaine when I was in the holding cell, and she came back. Would
you like some water?
Yeah, please.
Could you have some water? Are you okay?
Yeah.
I know it's hard, it's the worst thing to talk about.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. So,
Can I have tissues?
thank you. Should I put it there or do?
No, just
Sure.
you can hide it, right? Sorry, just
So yeah, the junior barrister came down then, and she said, I've just spoken to Elaine and Georgia. They send their love to you, and no matter what happens, they know I'm innocent, and we're going to fight and prove that. Like, so that was a massive boost for me, to be fair, because I had no contact with them for about 4 to 6 weeks, because when you're in prison, then you've got no phone numbers, everything's got to get processed. So yeah, I didn't have any contact with them once I was taken down then for about 6 weeks after that.
So when you got that message from your family and you knew that they're there, it must have given you a lot of strength.
Yeah. I mean, that's basically puts you back up on, onto the pedestal again. It's just,
It gives you that hope, that strength
Yes, yeah,
to carry
yeah.
on in whatever circumstances
Yeah.
you are.
Because, I know it's easier for me because I know I'm innocent.
Yes.
So it's trying to show other people that you are,
Absolutely.
which is, our justice system shouldn't really be about that. It's, you know, they're meant to believe what you're telling them,
Tell
not.
them. I know this is another hard question here, but what was it like being in prison during those initial days? Something which you're absolutely not accustomed to.
Yeah,
No
yeah.
family, a sudden charge which was absolutely unexpected, and then prison,
Yeah.
4 walls.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I never thought I'd ever cope being in prison at all, because, you know, you hear all these horror stories, you see how prison is on telly when you watch these films or you know, you think, oh my God. Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I went to Park Prison in Bridgend first of all, which is a BCAT prison, so it's very, you know, everything, you marched everywhere, wherever you go, you've got an officer with you all the time. So I was there for 14 months, and then I moved to Stafford Prison then, which is a long way from my family then. That's like 4.5, 5 hours away. So it's, when they said they were moving me, that was upsetting, because it's like, oh, you know, how am my family going to, expect my family to come and see me? Because I was having visits every week in Bridgend, which is, you know, hour and 40 minutes away from where I live.
Which is not that bad.
Which, yeah, because it's all motorway. So it's where Stafford is all back roads, and then they had to get a train, and then from Aberystwyth to Wolverhampton to Stafford.
Correct.
And they were leaving like 5 o'clock in the morning, and they weren't getting home till like 10:30 at night. So, and my wife and my mum, my auntie and my daughter then took turns every week, and they came up every single week for the whole time, which I was in Stafford for 4 years. But it's, yeah, it's, you know, it's a hard place to be. It's, how can I explain it? It's very lonely. It's, it takes it out of you, you know, emotionally. It's affected me, you know. I've been diagnosed with PTSD, but it's just, you know, I was in a single cell, so I would just go into my cell out the way, and I never really mixed with a lot of people. There were a couple of people, I'll be honest with you, there were a couple of people in there I got friendly with. I'd say 3 or 4 people, and they were innocent. Because you can tell the difference between somebody who's not and who is. But, you know, the worst thing about it is there's some really bad monsters in there. You know, there's some really bad people in there. So, and yeah, it's a thing I'll never forget. Never ever forget about it.
I'm sure the trauma of it, I mean, is going to be there for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's the coping mechanisms, you know, with family and kind of treatments, etc., which will keep you going, especially fighting for the truth, to be out in justice, which is so very important.
Yeah.
Because that is what is going to finally get you the respite that you need.
Yes.
The closure that you need.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
understand that. So amidst all this, Brian, which is, I mean, as I'm listening to you, I can actually feel, and for someone who's undergone that, I can only imagine and say, I'm so sorry that you've had to go through this when it was not your fault. But amidst all this, how did you keep your hopes high amidst all these circumstances and everything happening around you?
I mean, obviously, the family coming to visit me every week and us discussing it, and when you know you're innocent, you do have your dark days. You do think bad thoughts and whatever, and then you just try and move on, because you think, listen, you know, you do anything silly and, you know, think about taking your life, you're just letting them people win. But, you know, you do have the dark days, but it's, for me, over it all, it was just, I knew I was innocent, but I needed to prove that to my family. So, you know, Elaine, Georgia, my mum, my aunties, I needed to show them that, look, you're not supporting me because you know, because you have to. It's because I am innocent. So that was what kept me going then, you know, and there was bits and pieces coming forward as we were talking then, you know.
And that's what kept you going.
That's what kept me going, yeah.
So I believe, taking from there, what was it that motivated you and your family to relentlessly pursue an appeal? Because I believe that you all really strove hard for appealing against the decision.
Yeah, we did because when I was put into prison, obviously I was all over the internet and I was on telly, and all for the wrong reasons, because obviously I was this big monster now, and police had done a great job by getting me off the street by the sounds of it. That's what they make out, you know. They've done a great job, you know. Yeah, well done, pat on the back. But luckily it was funny because obviously when these things were on telly or it was in the paper, there was a couple of people that came forward. One of them wrote a letter and put it through my mum's letterbox to say that she's just read the paper and she can't believe that I've been put in prison because the complainant had told her when she was younger that she'd been abused by her natural father.
Okay.
So that was put through my mum's door, and it was like, wow, we need to get this to a legal team, you know. Then we had another lady come forward that had said that she'd been raped by the natural father back in 1990. So private investigators that we had went and spoke to her. So obviously my family then, it was like, hold on, there's some good stuff coming out here. So there was more evidence coming out all the time. So we got, obviously the next stage was that we need to go for an appeal. So we had to find a barrister and everything then, which we found Mr. Stephen Vullo, KC, yeah, from London. And he guided my wife and my mum and my auntie on the next stages of where we need to look at. So they came up to see him. So which was get a private investigator and get a forensics for the DNA, to have a look at this journal, because we'd never seen this diary journal in our lives. We've never seen it. The only time I seen the journal was when it was held up in court by the prosecution at the end of my trial, and she held it up to the jury like that, and that's the only time that we've ever seen it.
So it wasn't shown to you when they first called you saying the pages had been ripped apart?
Nope. Never seen the whole thing, not through the police investigation at all, not at all, only in court right at the end of my trial. So obviously with these two witnesses coming forward, that was like very strong. And then we had more witnesses that come forward that she'd been saying in the pub that best sex she'd had is with her dad. She'd had an argument in a wedding to say that she wouldn't go with her dad when she was younger because he was abusing her. So we had more witnesses. So it was, all these things were coming. So it was like, wow, let's see what else we can find. So then we get the forensics. Then we go and look at the diary. So Mr. Vullo then gets a forensics team sorted, and we get a specialist to look at this diary. So when I was going through my first investigation, because I'd said to them how the DNA might have got on there, which, because I obviously didn't know at that point in my head, I said it could have been wiped off from my clothing because she's found sticky substances and stuff. I said, well, she could have found it off my boxer shorts or bedding or whatever, you know. And they said, no, that hasn't happened because it's not a wipe, it's a blob. Well, they said it's a stain, that's what they said. So I was, right, okay. So this stage was making me really, really ill. So I went to play golf with my brother-in-law and an off-duty police officer. And we were playing golf, and you know, I was crying, and because he was a friend of me from school and stuff. And he just said to me, he said, look, Brian, he said, did you and Lane ever use condoms? And I said, yeah. I said, well, what's that got to do with it? And he's like, well, I'm just saying it's another source. So I was like, I was like, no. Why would somebody want to do that? Like, you know? He said, I'm just suggesting it's an option. So I went home, spoke to Elaine, And she was exactly, what? Really? No. So we discussed it, and we mentioned it to my solicitor a couple of days later, and the solicitors mentioned it to the police, and the police said, oh, we can test for that. So I was like, brilliant.
Breakthrough someone.
We can test PDMS. So this PDMS apparently is silicone, which you find in lubricant from a condom. Is what they use is the silicone. So I was like, oh, excellent, because it'll show then that where it's come from. So they do the test, we have the forensic report back, no PDMS found. And I was like, right, okay, where does that leave us? But the forensic report said, the original forensic report said, oh, well, the complainant saying that you ejaculated into the diary. And I thought, right, okay, well, why would you have a diary with my DNA in it? And how would you know it was? Because her thing to the police was, I've got a diary with Brian's DNA in. Well, how would she know it was mine? Do you know what I mean? And why would you think a blob of on a paper?
Question, isn't it? Yeah.
Why would you think that was DNA? So these are the questions that we kept asking the police, but they just weren't interested in answering these questions. So the forensic report came back then after having the PDMS tested, and it never came back with PDMS on it. They said the DNA could be from ejaculation, but it also shows signs that's been dripped from a condom. The pattern of the DNA that's on the page, because it was just like a splatter. So I thought, well, hold on, it can't be two. It can't be one and it can't be the other. It's got to be
either or.
It's either or. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you can't have, oh well, it might. So for me, even though there was no PDMS there, I thought, well, if you're saying it could have come from a condom, then that's not evident. That's not evidence. Then that's because there's doubt now, because you've got two different scenarios.
Yes.
But obviously it wasn't, because I was convicted. So when we get the diary back from the prosecution, we get photos of it all, and the stains on the page, it was a tiny little blob on the page. Pages weren't stuck together. It was, so whoever had done it has ripped pages out, had to put the DNA in it, leave the book open for it all to dry, and then close it and whatever. So you could see then, the more we look, because that's the first time we've seen this diary, so it's like, hold on, you can see there's something not right with all this. So we take it then and we get it sampled, and we take a sample in the middle of the DNA, and straight away it comes back with PDMS on it. So we look at what the police done with the forensic in the original trial, and their sample on my first trial was taken right underneath, off the stain. So they never even tested the stain.
Yes.
So the prosecution take it back, and then it then says they test it, they find PDMS.
Absolutely.
So my question in prison was, well, hold on a minute, how can you find PDMS now, but you didn't find it back in 2015 or 2016? So it doesn't appear now. So of course that opened a big can of worms then. So we then went to America to get the forensics done with Candice Bridge.
Why is it America that you had to go to?
Because the British forensics here exhausted every avenue. They couldn't take it any further, because the prosecution was saying then that the PDMS could have come from hand cream, moisturiser, shampoo. So they changed the goalpost a little bit again. So a little bit of a knockback, and then we had to explain to Mr. Voller had to explain then. So we went to America to this Candice Bridge, who specialises in lubrication. So she tested it all, tested it for PDMS, and then she tested it to see if it came back not from a condom, but every time she'd done it, it was 99.9% coming from a Durex condom. So that was the breakthrough evidence that we were after then, plus the new witnesses. So obviously all that came, and then we went for the appeal, which obviously went through a first judge, which she refused. the first judge refused my first appeal. So we had to...
Sorry to interrupt. So this appeal was done, before or after the process of going to America? So you were trying to first gather enough evidence? Or
No, it was all done after we went to America.
After? Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that was the first appeal?
Yeah, because that's why it took so long, because there was so much stuff in the forensics part of it. He was going to go for the appeal without the American one, but he said, no, let's wait. So she refused it, the first judge, and then I had to wait 9 months later then for my appeal to go through on the 1st of September 2022. So we were going for a listing in London just to see if we could be granted an appeal. And I was on a video link from Stafford Prison. My mum, Elaine, my wife and my auntie, they were all up in the High Courts of London. And after Mr. Vullo done his bits, the prosecution apologised to the 3 judges to say how wrong they got my first trial and how embarrassing it was and everything. So, like I say, we've got all the paperwork for that. So, which was like, hold on, I've just spent 5.5 years in prison here, and I'm still in prison. And within,
apologising to me.
and well, they're apologising to the 3 judges, the High Court judges, because it was so bad. Because actually, Lord Popperwell, the main judge, he actually said to her, "What are you doing down in them courts?" And I was instantly released from prison. So within an hour, yeah, well, it was a shock because I was waiting for them to agree to have a listing to get an appeal on another date, but no, I was instantly released. They said I was wrongfully convicted. The judge should have stopped the trial halfway through, and my barrister should have put a half-time submission in to get the trial stopped because it was just so badly run. So yeah, I was released then on 1st of September 2022.
1st of September, the one day which will, I think, remain in your memory, and also for Elaine and all your family members as well. Such an important day.
Yeah, forever. Never forget them dates. No, forever.
So in what way has your experience about the judicial system, what do you think of the entire experience that you went through? How has it altered your perspective of the judicial system here in the United Kingdom?
Yeah, I mean, I always say, and it's a horrible thing to say, but I was one of these people that if you read a paper and you read in there that somebody's been found guilty in court because the evidence has shown that they're guilty, I was one of them people that, well, good, that's what they deserve. But I have to put my hands up and say how wrong I was thinking that, because now I've been through the process, I know evidence and the truth has got nothing to do with our justice system. The courts it's just a theatre. They're not interested in the truth. The system is totally broken. And for me, what it does is it makes a mockery of it, because unfortunately, as we know, there are real victims out there.
Absolutely.
That unfortunately that these false allegation people, false complainants, they're spoiling it for real victims, because every time you hear something now, you doubt it.
Yes.
So, I believed that the justice system was the best in the world, and I thought they were there to protect me.
And they've proven you the contrary.
And they've proven me that they don't care about anybody but getting their statistics right for that year. That's all they're interested in, is in getting as many convictions as they can. That's all they're interested in.
And how do you think the public perceive your case over the years, Brian? How has it affected your family's reputation? Do you think it has made a difference? So much to endure.
I can't. It has affected us, our reputation. It's affected my reputation because I've lost a good job, and obviously you're going to get people that doubt you, because once you're found guilty again, I was one of them people you think, wow, why would he do that? And so, but we have been lucky. We live in a small little town, and you know, everybody that knows our story knows us. Everybody that knows the complainant and her father, they know. So we've been really, really lucky, really, that we do live where we do, because we've had actually nothing but help and support. People coming up shaking my hands.
Welcome to the community once.
Yeah. So, you know, we are lucky in that way. So, but you know, you hear some horror stories for other people.
Yes.
The unfortunate. Yeah. Again, you know. So yeah.
I know you said that you come from a small place, but at the same time, Brian, you are actually fighting a very good cause now that you've been through such an ordeal.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't like to say that you come from a small place, it doesn't matter, but you're being heard by millions across in the United Kingdom as well, with what you are actually bringing onto the television, through the various podcasts, through the various interviews, even in the Parliament and with the BBC.
Yeah.
And I just wanted you to throw some light on that as well. So how was this picked up? How did you go about that process?
I mean, to be honest with you, obviously when I came out of prison in 2023 after my retrial, it was hard to process everything. And there was a couple of groups that reached out to me, which was FACT and FASO. They reached out to me to give me support and actually have a chat with me and try and meet up with other people who were in the same situation, because you don't realise how many, you know, I didn't realise how many people there were in the same situation. Okay, you know, might be not as bad as a situation, or they're going through the same situation or whatever, they're getting investigated now. So they helped me a lot, you know, they've helped me a lot through the whole process, you know, and to today, you know, they're still part of my, I've done talks to them, to people for them and stuff. But I've always said when I came out, obviously the BBC picked it up and did the cost of innocence and stuff, and we've done the new one now with the compensation one. But if I can help one person not go to prison, or give them advice on, you know, how to go about it and not just sit silent like I did, because that's what you're told is, you know, just go with the flow, keep quiet, don't argue. I would tell them they're wrong every time. You've got to fight and for the truth. And unfortunately, like they say, you know, you're innocent until you're proven guilty.
Absolutely.
But you're not. In this country, you're guilty until you prove yourself innocent.
You've had to rephrase that, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's true, because when you go to the police station, I didn't have to prove anything. Well, you're not meant to. That's the justice system. Yeah. They've got to prove it.
Yes.
But you don't. You have to prove that everything to them.
Yes, and you've been through it.
And
you're a living example of that.
Exactly.
For everyone to see.
Yeah.
You also mentioned about compensation. You used the word compensation,
yeah.
And you did mention that obviously you lost your job.
Yes,
Even
yeah.
now you're suffering from PTSD. You're not able to get back into work. I'm sure that there have been a lot of financial repercussions on you and your family as well.
Yes.
So with regards to the compensation process, Brian, and because you're advocating that in the Parliament as well at the moment, can I ask you, how has it gone for you? How did the compensation process go for you, and how was it?
Yeah, well, obviously we applied for compensation. When I won my retrial, I applied for it. We had to apply for it ourselves, because obviously we couldn't afford any more legal fees, because that's the way you're meant to go. You can do it yourself through the MOJ online, which we did. So we applied for compensation, and you know, we waited a year. We just every 3 months we'd have a letter to say it's getting processed, it's getting processed, it's getting processed. And then a year and a bit later, I have an email back to say I don't meet the statutory standards to get compensation. So, which was, you know, that was a massive kick in the teeth, really. And it also says in the letter then, obviously, you know, that I have to prove my innocence. So it doesn't mean because I was found not guilty in a court of law that it didn't mean I didn't commit the crime. But then
Were you not acquitted of everything? Did it not clearly say that you were acquitted?
I was acquitted. Obviously, all counts quashed in the appeal courts, and then in my retrial, unanimous decision of not guilty. But obviously, the government don't look at it like that. But even though in the wording they say I am innocent, I'm presumed innocent, and still innocent of all charges, and you think, right, well, you can't be the two. So, but it's just a clause in there, as we know, the justice system is broken. Okay. The law, the way that they conduct investigations and trials, there's no different compensation. You're not going to get paid out, and that's what they're trying to stop. So, obviously, my aim is to challenge that, and I might not get nothing from it, but if I can change it so people going forward can get it, then that's what I will do. And I'm going to keep going until that law gets changed.
Someone has to start the process.
Yes.
It's a baby step, but
Yeah.
you're taking that first baby step towards it.
Yeah, exactly.
It starts with that one individual,
Yeah.
and you've taken it up.
Yeah.
It's a great cause. With that, you've actually given us your thoughts on the current laws governing compensation of miscarriages of justice in this country.
Yeah.
What do you think? That do you see any hope of any new laws being brought about, or any change, any reviews being considered after all this?
Yeah, I'm positive. I am very positive on most things now, because obviously it has to change. We're obviously working closely with the Law Commission, who are looking at changing the law. Mm-hmm. Ideally, they go back to the 2014 law, mm-hmm. Where if you've had a miscarriage of justice, you get paid compensation. Whether it'll be retrospective back to then, we don't know yet. I have got a meeting with them on the 9th of May to discuss that. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, we are proposing a new law to be put in called Buckles Law, which is...
named after you?
Yeah, I think so. Or it could be Elaine. Yeah.
Why not?
But
she's been the pillar along with all your other family members as well.
Exactly. But no, the whole point of that is because the Ministry of Justice is saying that my case is, because the jury have said I'm not guilty, doesn't mean that I'm innocent. So what my challenge to the MPs and the Ministry of Justice was, well, okay then, get my retrial jury back and ask them, when they found me not guilty, did they find me not guilty because of all the evidence they heard that I didn't commit the crime? Because when the complainant stands in the dock and says she was abused 2 years previously to knowing me, that just shows you it wasn't me. So when the jury come back, which obviously I don't think the Ministry of Justice want to get my jury back, because then that's proving them wrong. Yes. But going forward, what we want to put in is called Buckles Law, because at the end of every trial, if you're found not guilty, the judge can then say to the jury, can you go out for 5 minutes and debate whether you found the person not guilty because he's innocent, or whether he's not guilty because there's not enough evidence. So if they come back and say, no, we believe he's innocent, then that person gets their compensation. And that for me is the fairest way, if they're not going to revoke back to the 2014 law.
Correct.
You know, ideally they go back to 2014,
because
but
then everybody else would also benefit retrospectively. People
yes.
are going to be fighting it for all these people who have also had the same problem before you as well.
That's correct. So whichever way, I hope is a win-win, whichever way comes in, you know. So I'm fingers crossed we'll know about that pretty soon.
Fingers crossed to that, Brian.
So,
As I said, there's a lot of positive things that you've taken on board.
Yeah.
Along with that, you also happened to mention when we were talking outside of this podcast about some other things that you were suggesting in terms of compensation given immediately, and suggestions of those kinds as well, like to try and scrap off the immediate compensation or something like that.
What are you on about? Payments to
the so-called victims.
Oh yeah. I mean, obviously, going back, unfortunately, you know, these false allegation people, the false accusers, shall I say, they do spoil it for real victims.
Yes.
But the annoying thing about it is, a false allegation, the complainant gets paid compensation.
whether or not
it's happened. And they normally get paid before the trial even starts.
Right.
So my challenge to the MPs was, well, hold on a minute. If you're paying compensation to somebody that's made a false allegation, yet you're not paying compensation to somebody that's proved their innocence, that's totally wrong. Stop compensation for false allegations. If you're, you know, I don't know, because I shouldn't say I'm not, but I am a victim. My family's are victims now of what Keir Starmer has really brought in years and years ago. Let's believe the victim. Well, you're looking at one here now.
Yeah.
But the whole part of what I'm saying is, if you are a victim, you're not worried about compensation. You know, you want to get your life back, you want the help, some support.
And we are talking about real victims.
Real victims. You wouldn't want to be sitting on a beach on a holiday knowing that you're getting money because you've been made a false allegation, or if you've been a true victim of rape or any crime, you don't be sitting on a beach and going, oh, that's a nice holiday. No, yeah, but I was raped for that.
This is where the debate comes about, the real ones missing out, and the people trying to abuse the system and taking advantage for the sake of money. And that is like a double-edged sword.
Yeah,
Something
exactly.
for consideration.
Yes.
Brian, after listening to all this, I'm just wondering, with all the ordeals that you've undergone, you, your family, was there any support that you received from organizations or from individuals during this entire course of your journey? I'm talking about emotional support or even financial support, mental support.
Yeah, no, well, so I've been out now 2.5 years, and I've had 6 sessions of therapy.
Is that CBT?
through Mind, and so basically that's all I've had for my mental health. I've had no support. I'm obviously living off the state at the moment because I can't work. Like I said, I've been diagnosed with PTSD. So, you know, from earning £100,000 a year to now living off the state just because of a false allegation, and I don't know when I'll be able to go back to work, because you know I can't concentrate properly. You know, some days I don't even want to get up.
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
What about your GP? Have you tried contacting your GP and any referrals from there? Nothing?
Yeah, I've been to my GP, and obviously he's diagnosed me, and he referred me to a what do they call them? A clinic where they deal with
Give you a platform
mental health.
Counselling.
But the people that he referred me to, apparently they don't deal with people with PTSD. So so it's basically just get out of prison and get on with it. As I keep saying, you know, I'm free. People are going, yeah, you're free now, just get on with your life.
It's not
as easy, if only it was easy as that.
Exactly.
All the flashbacks and
You mentioned of certain support groups that you have. Which
Yes.
I think one of them
It's Fact and Phaso. Yeah.
So is it about like-minded individuals who've been through similar experiences like yourself, where you kind of, because that helps. A lot of times you meet together and you discuss, and that is also a way of trying to, you know, support each other.
Yeah, it is. I go to them. Every year there's 2 every year. So there's one in May now, which we're going to. So I go there, and you know, you speak to people, and they speak to you, and like they're blown away by your story, and you're blown away by their story, and it's just nice sometimes to know that actually you're not, because you do feel as it's, like I said to you earlier on, it's just happened to you, but it's happening every day, unfortunately. I mean, I speak to Brian from Fact quite often, and he gets at least 6 or 7 phone calls a week, you know, that people have just been falsely accused, and you know, and you just think no wonder the prisons are full. You know.
And Brian, how has your relationship with your family evolved post your exoneration, financially, emotionally?
I mean, we're stronger than, you know, it's hard to say. I mean, we had a lovely life, but it is different, you know. I'm different. I'm not the old, you know, I'm not the old brown buckle I used to be. And I don't know when I will. And it is hard on my family because they have to put up with me, basically. Well, they don't, obviously, but, you know, it's turned me into a totally different person. When I first came out, I was so bitter and angry and at the system and, you know, the way I've been treated, and and you know, it's not fair. It's not fair on my family either. But you can't help it. It's just it's something that you have to try and manage and live through. Tablets. But yeah, financially we're broke, basically, you know. It drained every single penny, and I still owe money to people, to, you know, family members who helped me. But yeah, it's been hard, very stressful on the family. Yeah.
I can imagine. So the most important thing would be to first deal with these steps of time.
Yeah.
Get to fight the causes that you are, and hopefully, as I said earlier, fingers crossed, you will win the compensation.
Yeah.
Something that you're fighting for. It'll make a big difference to you, to your family, to your life. It's not about the money, but there's a lot of other things associated with this as well.
Yeah.
And what message would you like to convey to others who might be facing wrongful accusations?
Yeah, it goes back a little bit to, you know, just back to the compensation part of it. It's not about money, you know, for me. It's, you know, it will help, don't get me wrong, but it won't change what's happened to us. But the government and all keep going on about they pay you compensation if wrongful convictions have happened, and like I said in Westminster, the challenge is, why are they looking at paying compensation? They should be looking at, that's the last resort. What they should be looking at is fixing the justice system.
True.
Because obviously the justice system is broken, and if they get it right, and listen, they're not going to get it right every time.
No.
There will be a couple slip through the net, then they can get paid compensation, but then they should be paid properly. But they should be fixing the justice system. That's what they need to look at more than anything. But going back to wrongfully convicted people, yeah, it's all my advice is to people is, you've got to fight, and you've got to fight hard. You know, it's, if you think your barrister's not representing you right, change them. It's, unfortunately, it does cost a lot of money, and you've got to get the right barrister to represent your case.
True. So Brian, what are your hopes for the future, both for yourself and for the justice system?
Well, I want to move on and rebuild my life. And hopefully I can keep a job down, you know, get back into work. When, I don't know, but that's my goal.
You say time is the best healer.
Yeah, and like I say, I'll be able to live with it, but I'll never forget it.
No.
But like, you know, just go back, the justice system needs to change, because unfortunately, as much as we do this, it's going to happen more and more and more, and it is happening more and more and more. But people need to come forward, and we all need to stand together. There are support groups out there for people, whether you're going through it as an investigation, you still come to the support group and try and get advice and help. And there's on the 9th of May, the Innovation of Justice Days and stuff like that, so in London. So people need to be coming to
voice out.
To voice, yeah. Because if you're not all standing together, then it's a wasted cause, really.
Yes, and you're in a democracy, so everybody needs to understand that you have a right to voice out and fight for what is wrong.
Yeah.
So that truth can prevail, and people like yourself who are falsely accused can see the light of day and not have to go through the same ordeal and the horrible, terrible experience that you and your family underwent as well.
Yeah. As I say, it's like, I call it a flick of a switch. I mean, we had a lovely life,
absolutely,
lovely family, and then switch goes off, and you're going through the worst nightmare of your life. So, and I just want the general public to understand that it can happen to any one of them.
Absolutely.
Anybody. So.
Brian, thank you so much. This has been a very, very overwhelming journey. I'm very grateful that you actually came and gave us your thoughts. It was very brave of you to actually voice out everything that you've gone through. And I'm sure people who are listening to this are going to take a lot of inspiration and a lot of courage from this. I'm sure there are lots of people like you, and I'm sure soon, hopefully with God's grace, we will see some good reforms, both in the judicial system and with the prosecution and elsewhere as well. But thank you so much for taking time to come and discuss your journey here with us.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Brian's journey from wrongful conviction to exoneration is a poignant reminder of the flaws within our justice system and the resilience of the human spirit. His story not only highlights the personal cost of such miscarriages of justice, but also calls for urgent reforms to protect the innocent. As we conclude this episode, let's reflect on the importance of vigilance, empathy, and the relentless pursuit of truth. Remember, justice is not just about punishing the guilty, but also safeguarding the rights of the innocent. If Brian's story has moved you, make sure to subscribe to our podcast and hit the bell icon for more real-life trials that challenge our perceptions and inspire change. Share this episode to spread awareness and join the conversation on how we can collectively work towards a more just and equitable society. Thank you for listening, and see you soon.